What is up, everybody? Here we are getting ready for the show. Excited for our Halloween spectacular, getting spooky on Legends Lookback for sure. And we have had a really fun competition going on this week. First of all, make sure that you can hear us okay, everybody. Send us, let us know how it's going. So we are running things a little bit differently this week. We've got a different setup. And we've had a pretty fun competition going on this week in the Discord, which has been, for whatever reason, I don't know how this started. Do you remember how this started, Freddy? We're trying to
not.
We were having this competition trying to figure out if how many Star Wars books I own. You know, there came a point where I realized, like, I've got a bunch, but I honestly have no earthly idea just exactly how many there are. Looking like they're hearing me better now. Give us thumbs ups, thumbs downs. Feel like audio's fixed, audio's better. Let us know. We'll sort it out on our end.
Can everybody hear me?
Otherwise, I'm just going to keep running the show and talking, and I won't even know if you can hear me or not. Which is a lot like my sermons. I just talk regardless of if anybody's listening. Anyway, I kind of got this curiosity bug. Maybe it comes down to the fact that, we've all been at home a little more this year than we ever expected. Isn't that right, Freddie?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's pretty amazing how long I've sat in this room the entire year almost.
I know the nooks and crannies of my house way better than I ever thought I would in 2020. Gotta say, was not on my New Year's resolutions back in January, but here we are nonetheless. And I got to a point where I realized, I bought a whole bunch of books and I remodeled my Star Wars room this summer, but I really don't know how many. Now, I've got 4 or 5 different spreadsheets, because I'm that kind of person, containing my favorite Star Wars books, what Star Wars books I've read, what Star Wars books I've read when, my rating on Star Wars books, what Star Wars books I recommend to friends. I've got all this stuff, but I don't actually have a count of how many I owned. So I pulled out my 6-year-old daughter who's in kindergarten. She's been doing a lot of learning numbers this year. Just learned to count to 100. Sometimes she accidentally skips from 50 to 60 instead of going to 51, but we're working on it. And so we have had a competition going in the Discord to guess how many Star Wars books I own. So now is your last chance, everybody, now to put into the chat what your guess is. And we are going to announce the actual number. And honestly, I've forgotten the actual number. So as I stall to find the actual number, we have been collecting everybody's guesses this week. And joining us this week on the episode, the first week ever with us as our producer, hence the little different setup tonight, why I look about 25% more relaxed. Hopefully next week it's 50 after we've gotten this one under our belts. I find myself asking Meg to keep good track this week of what all the guesses are. Meg, you got some kind of account of what our guesses have been? Can we hear Meg? Is Meg with us?
I am with you now.
Okay, great. We got Meg. Welcome, Meg.
I'm here. Hi.
So we're trying to remember what the guesses are everybody's had. I've got to say, nobody's gotten it right. Mm-mm. And in the midst of all of this, I threw in a curveball, okay? Last weekend in Slack, we had a few people had a guess around 100, a guess around 200. Everybody in Slack came in a little bit low on their guesses, honestly. Looking good, guys. Seeing you both now, which is fun. I was tired of looking at myself because 2020. Freddie, before you find out the number, what's your guess? You can see some of my books behind me. Not all. I'll go ahead and tell you guys. If you're trying to count each and every one of these Legends paperbacks behind me, you're doomed because this is not all the Star Wars books. Freddie, what's your guess? Last chance. Cheryl guesses 300. Eric says 100.
Say 268.
268 Star Wars books. Now, Freddie, that's really close to the number of Star Wars books I've read.
Ooh.
So that's really close. I'm around 250 actual novels, not counting graphic novels. I counted every Star Wars book in my room. That includes canon. Unfortunately, for the sake of this show, that also includes Legends. Don't tell anybody. guess I just put it out there on the internet for all to hear or see, along with that swear that I had during our intro, which was awesome. To be fair, I was quoting Corey, so it wasn't my swear. Anyway, Meg, did you have a guess? I'm trying to remember your guess, Meg. Joxy says 170.
I think it was somewhere in the 200s, maybe.
Okay, yeah, two. I mean, like it's like a modest. Honestly, like what kind of person owns over 200 books of one series? I mean, like my wife has a Harry Potter books collection, and by that I mean she owns like 10, and that's a big collection of books, right?
Yeah, that's big.
So Joxy says 170. What are the other guesses? Welcome everybody with us in the chat. And what I have not announced is there's a prize. Okay, if whoever was closest on the guess, I'm a redneck and a cheapskate, so there is no monetary value to this prize other than the price of, like the time investment that this is going to take. I'm going to ask. I have not told her this yet, so we'll see how this goes tomorrow. I'm going to ask my 6-year-old daughter to draw a picture of your favorite Star Wars character to whoever wins this competition. All right, so that's going to be the prize. You can exchange it for 1,000 galactic credits, and by that I mean I own no galactic credits. All right, Meg, you got any more of our guesses? I'm trying to find the Discord channel here. We'll find out who the winner is. We can announce the winner in the Discord channel. So if you want to be in the Discord channel, that's the place to go. Everybody, give a shout out to Meg for running the show for us this week, taking that, trying to take Legends Lookback to the next level. And by that, she means we're leveling up from level 1 to level 2. All right, we got a long way to go. So without further ado, the official count of my Star Wars books. Somebody came extremely close. I've got to find out who it was. My official count is 410 Star Wars books. Freddy, I could see the blood drain from your face when I said that. You like a little bit aghast at my
man.
at my answer. You feel like that's a lot?
That is a big number of someone owning any book series. It's just books, period.
Yeah, definitely is a lot. It is I told my wife, I was like, hey, we're going to be counting these books, and she was like, okay, I'm guessing you've got 150. And then she was like, man, that is a lot of books. And I was like, oh honey, oh man, I have got a whole lot more than that. But I will say this much: shout out to our incredible guest from a couple of episodes now, the master of the Trevor Trove himself, Trevor Davies, our buddy across the pond, who's been in this fight a lot longer than I have. Trevor, of course, has over 800 Star Wars books. Makes me look extremely refined and modest, doesn't he? So thanks everybody for participating. It's looking like Sophie said 420. So Sophie is looking like our winner. So we will. Yeah. Freddie says blaze it. I know. One time, Freddie, I went into a gas station at like midnight to get some medicine for my sick kid, and the total on the medicine was $4.20. And the guy ringing me out, it's like midnight. He says to me in the middle of my pain, my crisis, he checks me out and says, "That's $4.20." And I laughed. I went, huh? And he goes, "I know what you do, man. I know what you all do tonight with us on Legends Look Back, and that is." You love you some Legends. So without further ado, congratulations to Sophie, and let's start the show. Seamless way to do this.
And you're back.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody, to Legends Look Back. Here we are on our ultra Halloween spectacular and ultra spooky episode for a number of reasons. This is a show, of course, brought to you by Utini.com, a show that's been described as a show as spooky as Halloween Town, but with a lot more lightsabers, where we talk about all things Star Wars Legends. We're celebrating our rich EU history as well as diving into lesser-known Star Wars classics, and boy, are there a good number of those tonight. As always, I'm your host, Jared Mays, and today I'm joined by the infamous star of California himself, Freddy C. How's it going, Freddy? Freddy's around here somewhere. Freddy, what you got going on over there, man? Freddy, we're trying to start a podcast. What? You got your Halloween costume on, Freddy? What's going on?
Sorry about that, guys. I gotta get that helmet fixed. It looks like the comm link is out. So.
Oh, okay, that's what it is. If you just like tap it the right way, I think that fixes it, right?
Oh, that's what it was. Okay.
Is that your Halloween costume, Freddy? I gotta say, it's a great year to go as a fully helmeted or a fully masked Star Wars character, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like the Mandalorian, like the creators of the Mandalorian, really had a leg up on 2020, knowing that every kid in the galaxy was going to be wearing the full Mando outfit this year. I mean, what a better year for us to have a global pandemic. No, I did not say that. That never happened. Not at all. How are you doing, man?
Pretty good, dude. I was also thinking a bunch of Sub-Zeros and a bunch of Scorpions are going to be out there as well. I mean, anything that has a mask is going to be extremely popular this year.
Absolutely. We did a church function outdoors, fully masked, socially distanced last weekend. Very modest crowd. And my buddy came as Batman, but a Batman like you'd never seen him. Untucked t-shirt, worn out jeans. He's got the Batman mask on the top of his head and then a facial mask on the second half of his mouth. Second half of his mouth? Wow, it's been a long week. Freddy, you doing any trick-or-treating this year? You going to be getting any Star Wars candy?
I'm looking for all the houses with the full bars. There's that. No, I'm actually giving away candy for the first time this year.
Oh, that's exciting, man.
So I'm pretty excited. I don't know what to expect. I do not have a doorbell, so this is going to be interesting.
That definitely is. Man, I remember the first year that I had a house that would have trick-or-treaters too. I sat by the door for like 4 hours. We were in like the most prolific Halloween neighborhood in our small town in Arkansas. And I was so excited at the start of the night, and I've not been excited to give away candy on Halloween ever since. It absolutely broke me in every way. But tonight, as we are tackling our Halloween spectacular, it's not just me and Freddy. Joining us in a very special role now, who has stepped up to save the show from the oblivion that is trying to run a live stream. You know her and love her as the #1 Phasma fan in the galaxy. I know that's not Legends, but we like her anyway. How's it going, Meg? Glad to have you with us.
It's good. I'm good. Hello. Good evening.
Good evening indeed. It's a good evening for all of us, less for Meg, because it's stressful to try to do this for the first time. So everybody, make sure that you welcome Meg with your heart emojis and your Fs in the chat and all that good stuff, because she has invested her time, her credits, and her sanity. I mean, can you imagine hanging out with me and Freddy, not just every week for a live Legends show, but also the time before and after, in which we are saying all kinds of crazy stuff. You have no idea. So welcome to Meg, and also I'm sorry to Meg. Johnson says no Fs tonight for Meg. No Fs in the chat. No condolences. We're going to be that nice to Meg. She doesn't want that.
Meg,
of
how
course.
does it feel to be our producer for the rest of your life?
You know what? I am here to serve. So,
There you go.
I mean, in all seriousness, though, all of you watching don't see what goes on or what's going on right now behind the scenes. So
Yeah.
Jared has been doing what I'm doing right now, plus hosting this entire show, plus putting every episode together every single week, plus editing the whole thing. It's a lot for
Oh,
one
Meg.
person.
Oh.
So now there are two of us doing it, and Freddy.
Now there are two of them. And oh man, I'm sorry,
The rule
Eric.
of
You
two.
told me not to. You told me not to do that impression.
Oh no.
Well, what a day it's been at Utini. What a day indeed, because we have got Legends news tonight, Freddy. It's a pretty big day, isn't it? We've got Legends news on Legends Lookback because, of course, today we had the second book in the Thrawn Ascendancy, the third Thrawn trilogy. Everybody say that 5 times fast on a live Twitch show. The third Thrawn trilogy has now been, the second book is announced. I'm hoping to finish the first book tomorrow, maybe, hopefully, sooner or later, one of these days. And the title is Greater Good. Could not be more excited about it. You got the Chimera snakes, or I don't know what they are, on the cover. You got Thrawn. It's red. It's awesome. And in addition to that, we've got this special edition of the book coming out. But more importantly than the canon book, I mean, like, hey, it's great and all that. we got a T-shirt, Freddie.
Ooh,
Did you see the new Thrawn shirt?
I did. I actually did see the new Thrawn shirt, and I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I'm feeling like that's what everybody's getting for Christmas this year. If you are in my life, you're getting a Thrawn shirt. You're getting a Thrawn shirt. Everybody's getting Sabayoth's abs on your abs, or like chest. It's probably like thinking about the placement of Sabayoth on the cover with the Tom Young art. Yeah, we're probably gonna have Sabayoth's abs on like the sternum. Is that what this is called up here? I'll stop rubbing my chest and think about Sabayoths instead. I mean, this is the dream come true, isn't it, Freddie?
It is. Well, first of all, I'm a big fan of the chest, the proportions of the chest, and then the abs, the perfect, nicely shaped abs, in case you want to do laundry,
Absolutely. His abs shoot force lightning. That's how powerful they are. And wow, did we have a fun day in the Discord talking about that. And that's coming out November 17th. That is the shirt itself is going to be a product of Out of Print that has done that in partnership with Del Rey. And that's going to be releasing the same day as that $150 limited edition book. Freddie, I got to say, I spent a lot of time today thinking about how I can come up with an extra $150 by November 17th. What about you?
Yeah, I am having a hard time saying no.
Yeah, I feel like my wife might say no for me, but I texted her the link and she didn't tell me not to so far. So I'm probably going to take that as a do it, unless somebody sends her the footage of this video, which is now probably going to happen. Of course, if you are joining us tonight on this very spooky Halloween spectacular, you, of course, know all of this, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is a show that happens every Thursday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. Or if you are out on the West Coast, like Freddie, it's 6:30 Eastern time. For me, it's right before bed. For Freddie, it's right after work. So it's right in that sweet spot, that perfect sweet spot that is this Legends podcast. You can, of course, subscribe to our Twitch channel, which you are watching right now. Unless you're not, you could be listening on audio or watching on YouTube, in which case, welcome. You can also join us on Twitch. You can even subscribe for free if you have Amazon Prime. Grab those credits back from the galactic empire that is Amazon. Amazon, we love you. Thank you for letting us do our show here. And, of course, help us conquer the galaxy in the name of Star Wars. And, of course, we are going to be doing a listener feedback episode coming up soon, and we want your questions. There's a variety of ways you can send these in. Either you can email us an audio file at legendslookback@utini.com. You can email us, your feedback, your questions, your concerns, your comments in text form to that same email address. Or what would be really fun is you could call me. You can leave me a voicemail. I won't answer. I'll let it go to voicemail. Say your Legends thoughts, your favorite Legends book, your favorite Legends character. What Legends book have we talked about and have totally botched? It's up to you. Say whatever you want. Keep it clean. Keep it brief. 508-686-1158. That's 508-686-1158. You can, of course, leave us a message in the Legends Lookback Discord channel, on the YouTube comments of this episode, on Twitter. I mean, you could send your message in a variety of ways. You could even send it through a message in your R2 unit that can only be played once in its entirety after wrestling off a restraining bolt with a flathead screwdriver. Isn't that right, Freddie? That would be the preferred method, wouldn't it? And, of course, go ahead. Goodness. Wow. Well, we are, of course, glad to have you with us. Our audio listeners will never know. That is, of course, to say that we will continue to be posting the audio of this episode each and every week. One, on Patreon, and two, in our own original Legends Lookback Discord channel. You got a friend that likes Star Wars books? Send them the link to our feed. You got a friend that has never read Star Wars books? Hey, send them the link anyway. Maybe they'll become a fan. And, of course, we want to say thank you to our patrons who have been with us along the way. We've had such a fun time with our tremendous community in the Discord getting ready for this episode this week. And this episode is, of course, being recorded on Thursday night, October 20-something. I have no idea. What is today? October 29th, Freddie. and we are going to be talking about the spookiest stories, the spookiest stuff in Legends. Freddy, kick us off, man. What's first on the list?
Yeah, first of all, I love this time of year. You can go back to our first episode and you'll hear me say the same thing. I love scary stories. I love horror genre. So this is a really fun year for me, especially because this book really introduced a lot of it to me, which is Death Troopers by Joe Schreiber. And it's
okay.
We've got our heroes in it. I don't know if I want to spoil it in this one. We can, you can go ahead and listen to that, but we've got a couple of heroes in the
Episode
story.
0. Yeah. You got to go all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah. And, it's definitely one of my favorite ones. It's got zombies. It's got a couple of heroes from the Star Wars saga in there. So I don't know. What do you think, Jared? How much do you like Death Troopers?
I like it so much, Freddie. Thank you for asking. That I actually ordered the hardcover this week.
Oh, nice.
The fact of the matter is, I was supposed to do a video for our social media channel. Sorry about that, Joxy. We talked about this a long time ago. The other day, I sat down to record the video, went to grab the book. Turns out I didn't even own it. So I ordered it. Ordered the hardcover of both Death Troopers and Red Harvest. Excited to have those. Got them at a reasonable price using the Utini Thrift Books affiliate link, which you can use as well by going to utini.com, searching for your favorite book. Or you can click the link in this episode if you're listening on audio. Freddie, I like it so much that I am going to bump up that number from 410 to 412. You know what I'm saying?
That's awesome.
Pretty excited for it. It's great. One of my favorite experiences ever reading a Star Wars book was I was raking somebody's leaves, listening to the audiobook in their backyard. It's getting pretty scary. There's zombies. There's a lot of death. Everybody's fates are uncertain. And then the woman whose house I was at, it's her property. She sneaks up behind me. She didn't actually sneak up behind me. It was her yard. I had my audiobook going. She came right up behind me and she started talking to me. I turned around and she was right there. I'll never forget it. Absolutely. I mean, she could have been she could have absolutely been a Death Trooper, at least for a split second there. It was pretty scary for me. It's great because, Han says in A New Hope, see if I can get the impression right here. All right, I don't actually do an impression of Han. I do an impression of Mark Thompson doing a Han impression. All right, so he says in A New Hope, you remember this, Freddie? He says, then from one side of this galaxy to the other. And I've seen a lot of strange stuff. I've never seen anything that makes me believe there's some all-powerful force that controls my destiny. Is that at least like a 6 out of 10, Freddie?
That was good. That wasn't too bad.
I could do better. But I'll say this much. The fact that this book is able to capitalize on that idea, that there's a lot of strange stuff in this galaxy, is for me just like a perfect conceit for an excellent Star Wars book. Don't you think?
Yeah, and we'll really get in this episode. You're going to see all of the weird stuff, or you're going to hear about it.
Yeah, some of the weird stuff.
There's a lot.
Absolutely. Joxy has put a link in the chat. Grateful for that. If you want to buy these books right here live on Twitch, you can do it. Awesome, Joxy. Way to go there. One other thing that you might be interested in, Freddie, is that there is, for the holiday gifts season, there's a Gentle Giant Death Trooper figure. Have you ever seen this thing?
Yeah. I've thought about buying it so that I could cosplay as a Death Trooper.
Oh man, that's amazing. Wait, you're talking about the helmet? You would put on the helmet?
The whole thing, man. I would do the whole thing.
I'm picturing something that's this big, Freddie. How big is this thing?
Well, I mean, the cosplay itself.
Okay, I
want
was
a full-size version,
like a collectible figure, whatever it is. Get it for the Star Wars fan in your life. But Death Troopers isn't the only spooky, like adult, full-length Legends novel. It received a prequel set, several thousand years maybe, before Death Troopers, an entirely different era of the timeline back in the Old Republic era. You've got this Sith Lord named Darth Scabarus. What a great Sith name. In Red Harvest, also by Joe Schreiber, one of my very favorite Legends authors. Great author, wrote some great stuff. Red Harvest is basically a Sith Lord who kind of accidentally unleashes And this is tough to say in 2020. Yeah, he accidentally unleashes a deadly plague upon his Sith Academy that turns everybody into the undead. And Freddy, what's scarier? In this book, there's a zombie tauntaun, which is awesome. I think there's art of it in the Essential Reader's Companion. We'll have to post that in the Discord. What do you think is scarier, Freddy? A zombie tauntaun or a Sith Lord who accidentally unleashes a deadly, plague of a virus? Do we lose Freddy? Can you hear me, Freddy?
You lost him.
Uh-oh. Well, Meg, what do you think? What's scarier, the zombie tauntaun or the Sith Lord who is irresponsible with plagues?
Well, I mean, considering the times.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You don't really have to ask that question. It's a great book. Totally worth your time, though. Freddy, of course, been having some power issues. We'll have him back in just a moment. Third on the list of the spookiest stories in all of Legends tonight is Galaxy of Fear, a 90s classic, kind of reminiscent of Goosebumps by John Whitman. I think there's 6 books in this series. Don't have that number right in front of me. And Freddie and I have both been rereading these this week, talking to each other a little bit about them as we go, which has been a ton of fun. I've got an excerpt, everybody. We don't do this a whole lot on the show, but Meg's running things tonight, so I've got time for stuff like excerpts. All right, this is the prologue in the beginning of, what is it called? I only own a couple of these, and I don't own the first one. I've got Ghost of the Jedi and The Hunger. They're like 100 pages. You can read them in an hour or two. They're pretty light. The very first one, it's called Eaten Alive. Freddie, have you read, how many of these have you read, the Galaxy of Fear books?
I've read, I think there's 12 or 13, I forget. I've read about 8 of them.
Okay,
I don't remember
wow.
too many of them. It's been a while. Because I was definitely in that Goosebumps. So first of all, I love these Galaxy of Fear books. I think they're hilarious, but they're so campy and goosebumpsy. Like it's so great. I
have only read the first few chapters of the first one because Freddie sent it to me. I'm about to read the excerpt from the beginning. This I thought was actually pretty well done, pretty well written. Once I got into the first chapter, I realized, okay, the first chapter is nothing like this prologue, but listen to this, all right? The security door slid open with a hiss. A dark figure stepped into the laboratory where a single scientist stood over an examination table. On the table, something was alive. As the dark figure approached, the scientist did not turn around. Only 2 other beings in the entire galaxy had access to his hidden fortress, and he knew he had come to see him. "Welcome, Lord Vader," the scientist said. The figure, covered in black armor, took a step closer. His face was hidden behind a black skull-like breath mask. He was Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, the cruel right hand of the Emperor of the Galaxy. "Have you completed your research?" How'd you like my Vader, Freddy? The scientist turned. Good. In his hands, he held a sharp, hooked instrument. Behind him, the creature on the table shuddered, then grew still. I mean, what an incredible way to begin a book, right? I mean, this stuff's for children, but I was reading it today like, hey, I'm hooked.
Yeah. It's very, these books are horror films in a book form, right? And it's very easy to read. It's like only 100 some pages. You could probably read in a couple hours if you're invested. And it really describes how, I mean, this, to me, imagine being on this table, whatever that creature was, seeing this like dark Sith just approaching you, and he's horrifying.
Yeah, I this really does highlight for me, we're all used to Darth Vader. He's a part of our lives. I can't tell you how many Vaders I've got across this room. I got a Vader there, I got a Vader there. It's probably one behind me that y'all can see better than I can. I've got Vader on a bag of jelly beans, for crying out loud. I got a Vader there, Vader there, Vader there, Vader there. All right, there's Vaders everywhere. We're so used to Vader. We get to know him as this young, likable, pod racing kid in the Phantom Menace. We experience him as, Anakin, who's like a hero, and yet he's kind of whiny. We've got a very sanitized Vader until, of course, Rogue One, which delivered on a lot of fanboys' dreams. But Freddie, doesn't this excerpt really highlight just how scary Vader can be? if you think about it.
Yeah, and you started off really good when you said we're so used to seeing Vader and we're so used to his form, but imagine just being like a child, never seeing Vader before, and then you see this guy cosplaying as Vader, you're gonna be terrified. That that level of just black, just the outfit itself is terrifying. So yeah, I mean, I could imagine, and of course he's got
The breathing.
yeah, the breathing, and then the dark force, right? Or he's got the dark side in him, so you can feel that negativity.
The dark force is rising.
The
you
dark
could say.
force, it is rising. It rose.
Awesome. I'm excited, Freddie, to dive into these. I'm hoping I can binge them all, around the Halloween season. We just watched Beetlejuice the other night. I'm thinking about watching the Halloween Town films. Don't know if I'm gonna doing any other horror movies. I don't really do horror. I'm a scaredy cat. I like my Stranger Things. Don't we all? But I'm gonna read these. I gotta say, it's kind of a gap in my Legends knowledge, so I'm excited. Those are the 3 primary standout books that we're gonna recommend in the Legends universe that we think is totally worth your time. However, there's a few other honorable mentions. What's first on the honorable mentions, Freddie?
Yeah, so honorable mentions. We've got a Barv Like That, which is very interesting. It's the tale of Boba Fett, and it's one of the stories from Tales of Jabba's Palace. And I read this one a long time ago, and I was reading it up again, and I remember how crazy it was.
I've actually got this one. Unfortunately, I have not read it. And
okay.
It also, I planned to read it last year. I remember pulling it off my shelf. Had a beautiful brand new copy, not like this one, and I was excited to take it with me on a trip. We're going probably down to Arkansas to visit family or something like that. Got where we were going. Was excited to settle into my book. When looking for it, turns out I left it in the airport. Is there anything scarier, Freddie? I mean, honestly, as a Legends fan, than accidentally losing your Star Wars book in an airport or on an airplane?
That's terrible. I found one in an airport, actually. I'm just kidding.
Hey! No, so I got this used copy. Anyway, I'm excited to try to read this story, practice what I preach, make sure that it passes the Legends Lookback quality test. Basically, the idea with this story is it's the story of Boba Fett escaping from the belly of the Sarlacc. I mean, if you think about it, that's pretty frightening, right?
It's pretty grotesque, actually. Like once you go through it, I don't want to
go through the story or go through the Sarlacc.
Well, I mean, both. Yeah, it just gives you the story of the Sarlacc, and you get to experience what it's like to be inside it.
Beautiful. That's just what I was hoping for 2020 was experiencing what it's like to be in the Sarlacc. I will say, though, that the story of Boba Fett's return from the Sarlacc and everything that happens after in the Legends universe is some of my very favorite Legends storytelling. I love me some post-Return of the Jedi Boba Fett. And as of now, at least for a few more days, we'll see what happens with the Mandalorian. It's the only place you can encounter post-Return of the Jedi Boba Fett. We've got the market cornered on Boba, don't we, in Legends?
We do, and
at least for now.
I enjoy it for now. So,
absolutely. There's another Boba Fett story on this list, and it's a comic. We haven't talked about any comics so far. There is a comic, and I spent a good half hour this week trying to find this story. Did not succeed. I know I've read it at some point in my Dark Horse binging. The story is from Star Wars Adventures. It's called Boba Fett and the Ship of Fear. Basically, the idea is that Boba Fett comes into, he comes to have this 400-year-old ship's location on a map, and so he goes to get the treasure from this ancient ship, whatever it might have. And as he goes, there are other bounty hunters who are also going for it. Boba Fett is just always warring against the other bounty hunters in Legends, which makes for some pretty exciting stories. Have you read this one, Freddie? We lose Freddie again.
Yeah.
Tonight is just full of, I'm excited to pass the baton to Freddie, only to feel like I'm falling off of a cliff. Well, I can fall off the cliff with you all in the chat. Let me know in the chat, everybody. I'm going to talk to you for a minute. Have you read this story? Any of these tonight that you've read? Any that you especially recommend? Any that you're excited to try? I will say, it's pretty big Star Wars comics news this week. You can now get a subscription to Marvel Unlimited and have quicker access to the canon comics, at least. there used to be a 6-month waiting window. It's now been shortened to 3 months. And so it's a great time to get back into reading some Star Wars comics. But you know what? You don't have to wait 3 months or 6 months to read Legends comics. You can be reading them tonight. I mean, I know we've got Mandalorian coming out tonight, but you can read a Boba Fett story, one single Boba Fett comic before before Mandalorian comes out. Have you read this one, Freddie?
Personally, it's I like I like
Go
all
for
Boba
it.
Fett.
Don't hold back. Go ahead and say it.
Okay, so when I first picked this up, I was pretty sick, and every time I do get sick, I always think about it.
Oh, awesome. I love it. Perfect for a horror story, right?
You feel a little bit better.
And
Surprisingly.
for our final honorable mention story in the list of our spookiest stories in Legends tonight, don't you worry, the show is not done. The last story that we're going to mention goes way back in the Legends universe. In fact, it's so old school in Legends that Legends considers it Legends, doesn't it, Freddie?
Yeah.
This is a story called Blind Fury by Alan Moore. Tell him about it.
Yeah, so Blind Fury is not the Kung Fu movie that you're thinking about. Sorry, Jared. Go ahead. Take it, buddy. I'm having trouble over here on my end.
Okay, no problem. It's Alan Moore, of course, is a very prolific Star Wars writer, but bigger than that, back in the day, what was this? The 80s, 70s?
Yeah, this was like one of the first ones.
He was really prolific as a comics writer. I know he wrote a lot of the X-Men stories that I used to know and love. Alan Moore, I think, wrote a lot of Excalibur. Anyway, it's Luke Skywalker training for his lightsaber skills against the remote while blindfolded, and he receives a distress transmission, goes to try to solve the problem, and ends up on this spooky world where he's being, surrounded by like crazy creatures, and it's a horror story told back in in this excellent, very aged throwback format in the classic Star Wars line. It was originally published first in the UK, so throwing a bone over to our pals across the pond. That's one area in my Star Wars fandom that I'm pretty lacking in personally. How about you, Freddie? I haven't read a ton of these old school comics. And we're waiting on Freddie again. No problem. Freddie's getting a new computer soon, so we're hoping that straightens some things out. We have so far in this episode talked about the best stories concerning the spookier side of Legends, but we're also going to be talking about the spookiest characters in Legends. Starting off the list, pretty late in the Legends timeline, is Abeloth, the primary villain from the Fate of the Jedi series. For those who may not know much about Abeloth, she's basically this all-powerful kind of a celestial being who has set up camp to consume the Force energy, and basically starts this craze of paranoia amongst the Jedi students at the Jedi Academy. And basically this entire series, they're trying to figure out why the Jedi are all going crazy and turning against each other. Abeloth basically forces the Jedi and the Sith into an alliance for part of this series to be able to take her down. And to make it even crazier, it eventually even ties into the Clone Wars, into the Mortis arc. It's absolutely wild. Abeloth is an extremely terrifying villain. Freddie, does Abeloth send shivers up your spine?
Yeah, it's such a different creature, and kind of like the skill.
Having a little bit of trouble hearing you, Freddie. We'll see if that straightens out. It was going to be a great thought. I could tell. It was going to be amazing. The thing that makes Abeloth especially unique is that she is neither Jedi nor Sith, right? She's not your traditional Star Wars villain. She's definitely more monstrous than she is Sith in that regard. Next on the list of our scariest characters in Legends, and I'm hoping Freddie comes back for this one because it's a character he especially loves to hate, is Lord Nyax. He is a villain that Luke Skywalker and Wraith Squadron, I almost called them Waste Squadron. That's a totally different thing. Luke Skywalker and Wraith Squadron are able. They accidentally discover in the underbelly of Coruscant, as they're going back into at this point, the Yuzhan Vong have taken over Coruscant, and they're going on this like undercover fact-finding mission to try to figure out what things are like behind enemy lines back on the galactic capital. So it comes from infamous author Aaron Alston in the Behind Enemy Lines duology within the New Jedi Order. Isn't it crazy that New Jedi Order is so long that it's got series within a series? It's absolutely epic. Lord Nyax is this terrifying villain where as soon as they show up on the planet, they're hearing his like force projection in their mind. I'm sure that once Freddy is back, he's going to talk about how Lord Nyax is also in a certain video game. So we'll let him get to that in just a minute. Let's take a break and see if we can get some tech issues straightened out. And then we will be right back in just a minute or two. And we are back, everybody. Thank you for being patient with us as we get this all straightened out. It's one of the scariest Legends problems you could have is just like not having your co-host on your Legends podcast. Am I right, Freddie? Now, we were just talking about Lord Nyax in one of the New Jedi Order books being a pretty terrifying villain in that story, but it's not the only Star Wars story he's in, is it?
In Star Wars Galaxies, and there's a whole cult dedicated to him on Corellia, which is pretty interesting.
Amazing. Gotta love the way Star Wars Galaxies somehow makes its way onto every episode of Legends Lookback.
Shot glasses up.
Or something.
Full of water,
like a bell.
that is.
Just like a bell you could ring if you're underage. We've talked about some of the scariest stories in Legends, but now we're talking about some of the scariest characters. And I think there's one Legends property in particular that honestly has cornered the market on terrifying characters, and that is Knights of the Old Republic 2. Whereas KOTOR 1, hey, it's got like, the section where you're on you got the rat ghouls and the lower levels of Terrace, and you've got Korriban, the tombs, but KOTOR 2 in particular has 3 terrifyingly unique Sith Lords: Darth Sion, Darth Nihilus, and Darth Traya. Freddy, which of these do you think is the scariest?
Well, I really like Nihilus's look, that's for sure. Scariest? That's a good one, man. I mean, I feel like any Sith is pretty dang scary to me.
Darth Sion's thing, of course, is that he has staved off death. He's an ancient Sith who has, used to fight for Exar Kun. Gotta love me some Exar Kun. Tiebacks to the Tales of the Jedi comics, but he had staved off death with pain. He basically came to consume pain and thrived off pain. So his body's all, crackly like my hands in the wintertime, living in Massachusetts. And then Darth Nihilus, his thing is basically he's less of a Sith at this point in his life when you encounter him in the game than he is a void who consumes force energy, which is so on the one hand, all throughout the game, I'm like, oh, I can't wait for this character to be awesome. And then when you go to fight him, he like doesn't talk. He like never monologues like Malik. Malik loves a monologue. Am I right? Malik over here in the corner. Sorry, Malik didn't like me tapping on him and tried to force choke me. Excuse me. So this is a very different take on a Sith Lord. He goes to fight and he's just silent, and then you have a lightsaber battle. And I was like, well, okay. 2 pretty terrifying characters, and then the third, Darth Traya. I don't want to spoil the game, but she's a pretty significant story. There's a big plot twist surrounding her. She's basically got her own agenda.
She's a Jedi exiled, right?
Yeah, I think so. That sounds right. It's been, like 10 years, college, I think, since I played that one. I played KOTOR 1 a lot more frequently. 3 very terrifying Sith Lords. Let me know in the chat, which of the 3 do you find the scariest? Sion, Nihilus, or Traya? And we'll come back to those answers in just a minute. Let us know Discord or on YouTube what your answers are there. 3 terrifying Sith in that game. If you are looking to get some scary Legends video games, I'd recommend KOTOR 2 for this time of year. And Freddy, finally, There's one other terrifying character that we would be remiss if we didn't mention. You know who it is, don't you?
Naked Palps.
Absolutely. I was just going to say Palpatine in general. I was going to try to, dial back on the nudity in the show, but we can lean right into it if we have to. I mean, not only is he terrifying for his, taking over the galaxy by making everybody love him, he's terrifying in the sense that he's been cloning himself. And basically, he's impossible to kill. He comes back younger and younger and more powerful, recruits Luke Skywalker to the dark side. And if you don't know what we're talking about, this, of course, comes from Dark Empire, the comics from Dark Horse in 1991, my absolute favorite Legends stories. Any other characters, Freddy, that we need to mention at this point in the show? Who else should make the list? Any honorable mentions? Everybody put your guess.
Rancors?
Yeah, we can talk about the characters. I would put Rancors as more of a creature than a character. Don't you think?
Oh, yeah. Definitely a creature. Or character, on the other hand, that's we'll get into creatures, but I feel like in terms of characters, the last Palpatine that we saw in the movies where he was just decrepit and you could see the bones in his fingers. Goodness. Man, what an image. It's been months since I've watched that. Might need to go back for a rewatch, thinking about it as a Halloween movie. All right, may not be a great Star Wars movie, but it's a great Halloween movie. I don't know about that. But you did mention Rancors. Freddy, in these Galaxy of Fear books that you sent me, I've been reading, turns out Rancors, pretty terrifying Star Wars character, big monster. You got the teeth and you got Malakili, the Rancor tamer, Rancor mom. Yeah.
He's like a Rancor mom, right?
Yeah,
turns out,
so.
I discovered in the Galaxy of Fear books that Rancors have birds that live in their mouths that clean their teeth. Did you know this?
Yeah, very similar to crocodiles and alligators. That's kind of the image they're going for.
Wait, do crocodiles have birds that clean their teeth?
Yeah, they'll open their mouths and birds will come in and clean their teeth.
You serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
It happens.
Apparently, I need to read a lot more like zoology textbooks than Star Wars books. I don't have any on my shelves. Got 410 Star Wars books and no zoology books. That's a great. You learn something new every day. The more you know. Maybe our video editor can pop in the rainbow there with that. Rancors are a pretty terrifying Star Wars character. Who else? What other characters? Creatures. I keep saying characters. What other creatures, Freddy, should make the list? The scariest creatures in the Legends.
Yeah. How about number one? I think this can be a creature and a character. Okay. Rack ghouls.
Man. I think scarier than rat ghouls is thinking about yourself becoming a rat ghoul, right?
Yeah. I mean, it feels like you're touched with a talisman and you're a rat ghoul right away, almost, it seems. Yeah, it's pretty terrifying. You won't see anybody cosplaying. I don't guess you cosplay at Halloween. What do you do at Halloween? You dress up? Cosplay sounds more fandom appropriate. You won't see any trick-or-treaters dressed as rat ghouls for Halloween. But if they do knock on your door, give them no candy. Report them to your closest Jedi. Because, of course, if you get attacked by a rat ghoul, you become a rat ghoul. Unless you get that rat ghoul serum, and you got to find a Twi'lek and a Wookiee. It's a whole thing. I will say this much, Freddy. In a year where we've been ransacked by a deadly disease, the rat ghoul disease gets even more frightening, don't you think? Yeah, you just have to think after you read about the rat ghouls. Thankfully, we're dealing with COVID and not rat ghoul. Be
thankful, everybody. You heard it from Freddy, not from me. I know we've got Skooma Joe with us in the chat. Some of his very favorite Star Wars Legends stories are the Knights of the Old Republic comics from John Jackson Miller. I'm in the middle of reading them, and we'll talk about them hopefully soon on the podcast if I can get Freddy to read them with me. There's a huge rat ghoul story arc on Terrace in those books, which is especially well done. If you enjoyed Terrace and Knights of the Old Republic, or if you didn't, you should go back and read the comics. It totally redeems Terrace in that regard. Honestly, Legends has a lot of terrifying creatures on. We've got not just the Rancors and the rat ghouls. Those are pretty mainstream. Let's do a deep dive, Freddy. From the Jedi Academy Leviathan comics, we've got the titular Leviathans themselves. We're going to play a little game with this one, Freddy. All right?
Okay.
Hopefully you're not checking out the Wook and cheating on this. Have you read this story? It's like a spin-off of Kevin J. Anderson's Jedi Academy trilogy
I have
in the
not.
comics.
I'm actually extremely interested because I saw this in the show notes and I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know this yet.
Well, you've got like these standout, the first generation of Luke's Jedi students in Legends. You could think of it like X-Men First Class, right? The first group of students, but Star Wars, right? So the first class of Luke's Jedi students, they're pretty ragtag. You got Kip Duran, who's genocidal. You've got Silgal, who is not a fighter, but a healer. You've got Cam Solusar, who's, what is he? He's just buff. That's his thing. And then who else we got? Tion, who's a librarian and a historian. Well, they're on a planet where they're attacked by a Leviathan. It's an ancient beast that can hibernate for thousands of years. All right, I'm going to give you a description of 5 different qualities of Leviathans, and you're going to tell me which of these is not true, okay? Which of these is not actually true of Leviathans and I made up? Because this stuff, you can't make this stuff up unless you're Kevin J. Anderson, in which case you did. It happened. All right. Which of these is not true of Leviathans? Everybody put your guesses in the chat. A, were they created by Sith Lords? B, could they hibernate for thousands of years? I just said that, so kind of gave it away. 3, they can make Force sensitives hear screaming in their brains when they're around them. D, they can shoot Force lightning. Or 5, they can shoot fire. Which of those, Freddy, and everybody who's with us here in the chat, which of those do you think is not true of Leviathans?
Oh man, this is a good list. Every single one of those seems like it could be true.
It's one of my favorite Legends Lookback games, when I make something up and see if I can stump Freddy.
The making Force sensitive hear screaming, it sounds probable, right? I haven't read this, so this is very much new to me.
It also sounds problematic. It's kind of both.
Yeah. Shoot Force lightning. Okay, we've seen that. That's a thing. Shoots fire. I mean, if you can shoot Force lightning, you could probably shoot fire.
Yeah, one and the same, like a little bit overlapping there. Plasma of some sort.
Created by Sith Lords. Now, I mean, Sith Lords are known to create weird creatures. This is a tough one, buddy. I'm gonna give it to you. Obviously, the 1,000 years, you gave that one up, so that's a freebie.
Yep.
Odds
If
are still
this
not
was
in
for
my
your
favor.
ACT or SAT, you can scratch that one out. That one's a givey.
I'm gonna go with
given.
the make Force sensitive hear screaming because that I like that, and if it's true, then I'm gonna be so glad.
And your winner is me. Freddy loses. Thanks for playing, Freddy. Hope to see you back next week. Skooma Joe says I went from A, B, C, D to 5. One of you guesses D, and she is right. She is right. They cannot shoot fire. They can. No, they can't. Oh, hold on. I'm confused. I messed
Shoots
up my
Force
own
lightning
list.
is.
They cannot shoot Force lightning. That's the fake one. Because you can't have like a monster that shoots Force lightning. You have to have fingertips. All right. Yeah. Think Palpatine's. Today in the Discord, somebody described them as sparkle fingers, like from Thor Ragnarok. Yeah. Leviathans do not have sparkly fingers, but they can breathe fire or shoot fire. I'm not sure. But totally worth investigating. Next up on the list of Legends creatures you should totally investigate is Vornskers. We just been talking about the Thrawn trilogy. Freddy, did you ever get scared when reading the forest scenes in Heir to the Empire? After all, they hunt force sensitives. You got Luke and Mara trying to trek through the jungle. And you've, of course, along the way, got these monsters attacking them. They never really scared you?
It didn't scare me when I first read it, but I watched a video of a person getting stalked by a bear, and then I was like, oh man, Vornskers are terrible.
Because they've got more teeth, more claws, more force lightning. Wait, no, that one's not true. But it's scary to me because Luke is like, he's hampered. I don't think he has his lightsaber, right? Doesn't Mara have him like...
Mara has it. She does not give it to him.
So you've got a hampered Luke who's being held captive in the jungle while these creatures are attacking him. That to me was scary. It was like, are they going to get hurt because Mara like doesn't want Luke to have his lightsaber? I find all the wildlife on... Is that on Mirkor?
Yeah, that was on Mirkor. That was just after they got shot down by... they crashed into that tree.
I find that entire ecosystem that Zahn developed on Mirkr to be just excellent with the Ysalamari and the Vornskers, and then later on in Legends, in Star by Star, they go back to Mirkr because somebody with the Peace Brigade or the Yuuzhan Vong has bioengineered like a crossbreed called Voxen. Man, that stuff's awesome. What a great book. Voxens should also go on the list. Even more ferocious. Just a few more here out of our Legends creatures that we want to highlight. And this one, honestly, it could go either way on the list. This next entry could be a character. It could be a creature. And that is the Yuuzhan Vong themselves. Freddy, let me ask you this. What's the scariest thing about the Vong? Is it the fact that they have no nostrils? That they're invaders from outer space who come into your neighborhood and, just mess everything up? Is it that they hate technology? That they can't be detected by the Force? That they're complicit with slavery? Or just their general cultural insensitivity?
I'm going to take all of the above.
Okay. I find the cultural insensitivity to be especially frustrating because it's real world. People who wage war against others because they never try to understand their way of thinking. Well, not to start preaching here or anything, but I am actually a preacher in the day job. Yuuzhan Vong, on the one hand, annoying. On the other hand, well established, well developed. But if we're being honest, kind of terrifying if you think about it. Don't go Googling Yuuzhan Vong art. That'll give you nightmares for sure. Especially the no nostrils thing. The Japanese covers, aren't they amazing?
They are. The art for the Yuuzhan Vong is so good. I mean, it every time I look at it, it's so creepy. Like if I were to put me in the Star Wars universe and see a Yuuzhan Vong, I'm gonna go the other way as fast as I can.
Absolutely. We've got just a couple of others we'll mention briefly in regard to the scariest creatures in Legends. And Freddy and I are at a bit of a crossroads with this one because we say this word differently. And honestly, there's not an unabridged audiobook for it that I can get my hands on, so I'm not totally sure what would be the correct pronunciation. But you do you. I say the Kaliks. Freddy says, what do you say, Freddy?
I say Kilix.
The Kiliks. This is from the infamous Dark Nest trilogy by Troy Denning. Denning is known for kind of going above and beyond, kind of a wacky guy. He's always about extra decapitations and lost limbs. The basic idea here is that there's massive bugs who can mind control some of the most prominent Jedi into waging war and conquering the galaxy. It's an absolutely bonkers trilogy. Comes right after the New Jedi Order. Meg, I want to ask you about this one. All right. We had an infamous incident in, what was it, in assembly one night, maybe a month or two ago, with the grasshoppers. Meg, what could possibly be more disturbing than grasshoppers in your house? How about bugs that are bigger than humans that can use mind control? Would you take the mind control bugs or the bugs that are actually in your house?
Neither. I don't want any of it.
No, Joxy says they were crickets. What's the difference between crickets and grasshoppers?
Crickets, it doesn't. If it's a bug, I don't want it.
If it's in your house, it's not where it's supposed to be.
I don't want it in my house.
Meg, be thankful that they are not bigger than you and cannot mind control you.
You're right.
And now that you've got nightmares about that, we'll move on. Finally, Freddy, what's in any other Star Wars creatures that we haven't mentioned? Doesn't specifically have to be from Legends that are especially terrifying. Anything we've missed? Anything we should mention?
Crate dragons. Crate dragons, part of them.
Yeah, I guess that could be scary. They certainly scare off the Sand People. In I guess that's a slur, isn't it? The Tusken Raiders.
Tusken Raiders. Yeah.
Crate dragons could be scary. I think of them more as like big lizards. So that's less scary to me.
Dinosaurs, same thing. Scary.
I guess they could be scary.
You've got the Rancors, which I mentioned earlier. And, I mean, there's one right in the beginning of the film, right? Right when they're in the trash compactor, the Diagonoga.
Dianoga. I spelled it wrong in the show notes. He said Diagona.
Diagonoga.
Well, if Freddy ever has his own pet Dianoga, he's going to name it Diagona. The Dianoga.
Yeah.
That would be pretty scary. It just sucks you under the water. The scariest thing to me is not that there's a creature in the trash compactor. It's that there's like standing water in the trash compactor. That's especially gross.
That's
I'll
disgusting.
say this one and we'll move on. How about the worms that Zam Wessel puts into Padme's bedroom? Ain't
Yeah,
nobody
those
need
are.
worms in your bedroom.
I mean, that's. I can't. That's right there with the crickets. Just they can not. They can stay outside.
Well, we have talked about the scariest characters in Star Wars Legends. We've talked about the scariest stories in Star Wars Legends. We've talked about the scariest creatures in Star Wars Legends. We're going to talk now about the scariest locations in Legends. Let's do this one quickly, Freddie. What do you think are the scariest locations in all of Legends? Or you can think big picture about Star Wars.
Yeah.
What's the first place that comes to mind as in like I do not want to go to there?
Definitely Dagobah. The it looks cool and all, but the tree cave does not look like a place that I really care to visit, especially after reading about it again. And you just you I guess you get a visual, or yeah, I guess you get a visual of what it's like to be there when Luke has to go back in the series, right? So in the
Yeah,
Thrawn trilogy.
man, as a kid, I always found that scene so weird and so terrifying. Now that I'm an adult, I find it so poetic and so meaningful. It's so existential. But I love what the Thrawn trilogy does with it. Heir to the Empire tells us that there was a dark Jedi who had gone there, and so you send Luke back, and he's got another vision in the cave. Honestly, I don't want any hallucinations. I had a bad reaction to morphine as a teenager due to a
Oh
bike
man.
wreck. I had hallucinations. Seeing stuff that ain't real, not a fun thing, especially if it's a massive cyborg dad with a lightsaber. All right. The Dagobah tree cave. I find Dagobah to be charming, but not if it's evil. All right. There's another place that's not in any of the films, however, that is featured prominently in one of my very favorite Legends books. I'm trying to convince Freddie to read. It is Yoda Dark Rendezvous, and the location is Vajun. Freddie, we just really don't have many Yoda stories, do we?
No, and this one is actually pretty. I would say this is a good book, and you could kind of consider it as canon, even though it's I believe it's still in Legends for
There's
sure.
nothing too legendsy about it.
No, it's during the Clone Wars, right?
Right.
So that's kind of one of the gray areas for Legends and canon. It can fit both ways.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's
adaptable.
It's an interesting story, and I'm shocked we didn't actually get to watch it. But I'm glad it actually exists as a book.
It for me was a huge underrated surprise. I knew nothing about it going in. I had heard no one ever say they liked it or disliked it, which is rare, honestly, with Legends books. Got into it. It was on vacation out at camp. Propped my feet up in the chair. Got away from my wife's family for a week. They're over there having a good time. I'm in my chair reading my book. And anyway, Dooku, you examine the relationship between the two of them. I won't review the book now. I will talk about Vajun. Dooku has a lair. He's got a castle on this planet that is encapsulated by carnivorous plants, bloodthirsty plants. Like think Venus flytraps, but they want to suck your blood. And there's these underpowered Padawans who are like just this pair that's not especially powerful in the Force, and they're teenagers, so they're paired with Yoda, and they're captured by Dooku. And Ventress, of course, has a great storyline in this book, but it's like this you can almost hear the organ music playing. It's so mustache twirly, and it's a great location. Vajun is also featured in a Star Wars video game. Trevor was telling me about. I'm blanking on it now. Maybe Jedi Starfighter. And another great Legends book, one of the Junior Jedi Knights books with Anakin Solo. So kind of coming up in a few different places in the timeline. Wouldn't it be fun to take like a medieval tour of Dooku's castle in like
That'd be
VR
amazing.
or something?
That'd be awesome. I would
So
totally be down for that.
that's my pick of Legends scary location. Other places worth mentioning out of scary Legends locations, Freddie. What else have we missed?
We always talk about scum and villainy in Tatooine and the Cantina, but we totally do not talk about it as often as we should for the underworld of Coruscant. Talk about grime. I mean, you get down to those deeper levels, and there's no law, there's no order comes from whoever's down there.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually find the underlevel of Coruscant even scarier later in the timeline. During the New Jedi Order series, talked about it a minute ago in the Enemy Enemy Lines duology from Aaron Alston. The same book with Lord Nyax, the second book in the series. Rebel Stand, I think is what it's called. There's Rebel Dream and Rebel Stand. Luke and the team of Wraiths go to Coruscant that's now been terraformed by the Yuuzhan Vong. So now you've got this dark underworld of Coruscant, but it's been neglected by the government, and it's been invaded by plant life from a galaxy beyond the galaxy far, far away. And so they go down into the depths of Coruscant, but now it's totally different and way scarier. I mean, I'm getting palpitations just thinking about it. Finally, other places worth mentioning, the scariest locations in Legends would be Korriban. The Sith Academy and the tombs. You got the beasts, the terracotta. Is that a cheese or is that a creature? There's like,
I'm pretty sure that's terracotta is like a material.
There's like force hunting dogs in the tombs on Korriban. Somebody who's a bigger KOTOR expert than me can let me know. And Freddie, let me ask you this: out of all the places we've talked about, you got the tree cave on Dagobah, the Dooku's dark lair with carnivorous plants, the underworld of Coruscant, the tombs on Korriban. Which of those places would you like to trick or treat the least?
I just had a vision of trick or treating in the underworld of Coruscant, and that just did not go well.
No, not at all.
You'd probably get abducted and sold into slavery.
It's all tricks and no treats.
Yeah, but also, Moraban. I mean Korriban.
Yeah, in canon, it's Moraban.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
That doesn't seem. I mean, none of those places seem.
I'll never get over that.
Yeah, none of them seem appropriate for a trick or treater.
I mean, isn't the point of this entire holiday, though? All right, we're not going to examine its historical significance and how it develops culturally, but currently in our culture, isn't the point of it like that we like to be scared by things that we can control? Like you get to choose what costume you're wearing. We like to choose to watch scary movies and read scary books. The point of it is like, people go to haunted houses. Why can't we go to Dooku's mansion?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll send that to our friends over there at VR Labs. ILM X Labs. See if they'll make a VR Dooku's castle for us. Freddie, before we wrap up the episode, I've got just a couple final questions for us, okay? That we've talked about the scariest Legends stories, the scariest Legends characters, creatures, and locations. But finally, we're going to talk about the scariest real-world Legends problems, okay? I mentioned one earlier. Losing my Legends book in the airport was quite traumatic because then I didn't have my book for the rest of the trip. Here's a few others. Okay, and I want you to tell me which of these, and everybody let me know in the chat, which of these you would hate the most. Which of these is the most terrifying to you? I have now been gifted again by Joxy, and I pulled it up on my computer, and I've watched myself dance for the last 10 minutes. I'm turning that off. Thanks, though, Joxy. Wow, that just broke my brain. All right, now, which of these is the worst? Going on a trip and not bringing enough Star Wars books. Been there, done that. It was horrible. Except for then I got to go to a bookstore. Enough about me. Receiving a Star Wars book damaged in the mail. Oof. Thirdly, reading a series, finishing the book, and it ends on a cliffhanger. So you go over to your Star Wars collection to pull the book off the shelf, only to realize either you never owned it and thought you did, or B, you own it and loaned it to a friend, forgot that you'd loaned it to a friend, and turns out they're not much of a friend because they never returned it. All right, out of those three options, which of them is sent the most chills up your spine?
I would say going into your library, thinking you own it, and you look through the tomes, right? You're searching through the archives, and it does not exist in your 420 bookshelf.
Yeah, I've got 420 books, but 410, about to be 12. I'm actually going to a used bookstore tomorrow, so hoping to grab a few more. You never know. They might have a Kenobi hardcover. Somebody doesn't know. It's like the goal. Meg just got the Darth Plagueis hardcover. That's exciting.
That's nice.
And it wasn't damaged in the mail. So which of these, Freddy, is the scariest for you?
These are all pretty scary, I'm not gonna lie. And there's another scary one that I have, which is you buy a brand new Star Wars book, and for some reason you buy it in another state and you're flying back, and you have to make sure that book does not get damaged during the entire flight.
Yeah, that's tough. You got to pack it around your socks. You
Oh
gotta
no, I
pack
just
the
held it the
socks
whole
in
time.
around it. Yeah, there you go. Keep it
Into
on your
my chest.
person, like it's more valuable than your passport. We've got some great answers coming in the chat. Bro Dameron says the second option, receiving a Star Wars book damaged in the mail, is frightening. It's frightening because it happens so often. You can almost count on it happening. Okay. Cheryl says, as does Adam, they both think that 3, reading a series and then realizing that a friend never returned the book, that's pretty terrifying. I will say we're about to do The Last Command pretty soon, the roundtable. I had to spend a good portion of my summer accosting a teenager from church to return that to me because he was moving and he was not about to take my copy of The Last Command with him. It's all beat up. I've loaned it to dozens of friends over the years. I bought it for $2 at a used bookstore as a preteen, but it's sacred and it's special. Okay. And it's got that amazing Tom Young art. It's the fact that it's been read by so many friends to me is what has so much significance. I've got some books on the shelf that I've never even opened. I want to keep them in pristine condition. I've got others though that I know a ton of people have had fun with. All right, one final question, Freddy. We've got some excellent answers. Thank you everybody for hanging out with us in the chat tonight. Loving hearing your feedback. We're now discussing the history of Morabon and Korriban, and I'm gonna have to catch up on all that later. Got some excellent answers. They're saying that in Myths and Fables they call it Korriban. Here's the thing: I don't think Myths and Fables is canon. I think it's still legends told in the Star Wars universe. So in canon, these are legends.
Those are
as
some
are
fighting
legends,
words.
right? I mean, the second book, the sequel to Myths and Fables, is actually called Dark. What? Come on, it's called Dark Legends.
Dark Legends.
The writing is right there on the cover. So
It's
that's
a
not
Legends
actually.
book.
That's not enough.
Myths and Fables is a Legends book. We're claiming it.
You heard it here. I love those, honestly, for real. Love those. Joxy just got the collectible Galaxy's Edge version, and it is gorgeous. Anyway, as we wrap up the episode here, Freddie, let me ask you one final question. In terms of real-world Legends problems, this one's just for you, my friend. Would you rather, it's a classic, this one or that one, all right? Would you rather read the entirety of the 2,000-plus page New Jedi Order series again, or reread Ruins of Dantooine once?
Here's the problem, is that these are going to happen in Legends Lookback.
They're both going to happen. Yeah, they're both going to happen.
Oh, man. I would much rather read 2,000 pages than Ruins of Dantooine, but it's going to happen, so...
Oh, my goodness.
Can't wait. I can't wait for Meg to read that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to send it to Meg. I was looking at it today. I couldn't find a copy that I liked online. I'm going to look for it in person. I'd like to get her one without the Legends banner. She may not care. I care, though. It's an OCD thing about me. I'd like to send her a copy of Ruins of Dantooine. So what I'm not going to do, Meg, is send you a copy of 11 Ruins of Dantooine.
Ruins
like we sent to 11 copies of I, Jedi to Corey when he was on vacation. That was so awesome.
We're going to send you
Absolutely
copies of Heir to the Jedi.
No.
No, she just says no. All caps. No, even spoken, it was in all caps. It's got some great answers here in the chat. Joxy says that he's so bad at loaning things because he's had so many people never return books and movies and games to him, which is absolutely a problem I can relate to. Cheryl, oh my gosh, that's hilarious. She says, my Return of the Jedi DVD is at my old Netflix and Chill's house. Not that she used that as a noun. At my old Netflix and Chill's house, and I'm too scared to ask for it back. Oh, man, I'm getting scared just thinking about it. I'm getting nervous and sweaty in the pits. All right, let's end the episode. This has been a ton of fun, and before we do, what can you do in the meantime? Well, you can check out some related materials on utini.com. We have, written by Charles Henkel himself, from The Living Force, he wrote a horror collection this time last year, featuring all of these Legends books that we have talked about on this episode, as well as a number of canon books as well. We will put the link for that in the show notes if you're listening on audio. And also check out the 13 Days of Utini-ween on social media. I was wondering, Freddie, if I'd be able to actually get that out of my mouth.
I've been saying Utini-weenie for the longest time. I'm so glad you did it.
Utini-ween. Eugenie Weenie with Spready Freddy. Next up, what if Leia was trained by Yoda instead of Luke? What if Corran Horn became Grand Master of the Jedi Order? What if Luke turned to the dark side? Next episode, we're going to be talking about the alternate realities and hypotheticals within Legends on a very special What If episode. After that, coming soon, our incredible patron Cheryl Bell will join us as our guest for The Last Command for some Mara Jade discussion. And when we finish that, we're going to talk about some more Mara Jade. And after that, you guessed it, more Mara, because she's Cheryl's favorite character, and we could not be more excited to have her support as a patron, as a friend, and finally as a guest on Legends Lookback. That does it for this week. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on the show.